The Zarathi cruiser Endless Dream fell from the sky like a wounded bird. Its engine screamed and sparked as it cut through the atmosphere of the small blue planet. Inside the ship, Captain Vexnora gripped her command chair with all four of her slender arms. Her large violet eyes watched the screens flash red with warning after warning. "We are going to crash," said her navigator, a tall being with scales that shimmered green and gold. "The main power core is dead. Backup systems are failing." "Find us a landing spot," Vexnora commanded. Her voice was calm even as her ship died around her, somewhere away from the local population centers. The ship's computer, damaged but still working, found a large open area covered in tall grass and scattered trees. It was far from the bright lights that marked the primitive settlements of this world. The planet was listed in their star charts as a Class 4 developing world. Its dominant species had not yet achieved spaceflight. They were still bound to their single planet, burning fossil fuels and fighting wars over lines drawn on maps. The Endless Dream hit the ground hard. Metal screamed. Sparks flew into the night sky. The ship carved a long trench through the earth before finally coming to rest against a rocky hillside. Steam and smoke rose from its broken hull. Vexnora pushed herself up from her chair. Her body ached. Purple blood dripped from a cut on her forehead. She looked around the bridge at her crew. There were 5 of them in total, including herself. All were alive, though some were injured. "Status report," she said. Her engineer, Krilsa, pulled himself out from under a fallen console. He was short and stocky, with rough brown skin and 6 small eyes arranged in 2 rows on his face. "It is bad, Captain. Very bad. The quantum drive is completely destroyed. The main power core has cracked. We are running on emergency batteries, and those will not last more than a few days." "Can we repair the damage?" Krilsa made a sound that was his species' way of expressing hopeless despair. "Captain, we would need a proper repair station. We would need replacement parts made from materials this planet cannot produce. Their technology is primitive. They have not even discovered quantum mechanics yet. They still think atoms are the smallest things that exist." Vexnora closed her eyes. They had been on a simple mission. Just a routine cargo run between 2 colony worlds. They had dropped out of quantum space to check their navigation, and that was when the power core had failed. The emergency brought them here, to this backwater planet in an unimportant corner of the galaxy. "We need to send a distress signal," she said. "The communication array is damaged," her communications officer, a small feathered being named Thierry, reported. "I can try to repair it, but even if I succeed, we are far from any shipping lanes. A rescue ship could take months to reach us, maybe longer." "We do not have months," Krilsa said. "We have days. When the batteries die, so will life support. We will freeze to death or suffocate." The crew fell silent. They all understood what this meant. They were going to die on this primitive world, surrounded by beings who had not even achieved contact with the greater galactic community. That night they set up a small camp near the crashed ship. Their emergency supplies included heating units and food packets that would last a few weeks, but without power, all of it would become useless. Vexnora posted a watch, worried about the local wildlife. Their scans showed large predators in the area, though none had approached yet. It was on the 2nd night that they saw him. The human came walking out of the darkness, following the deep trench the ship had carved into the earth. He was tall for his species, with broad shoulders and thick arms. His skin was a dark brown color, and his black hair was cut short. He wore simple clothes made from some kind of plant fiber and carried a large bag over one shoulder. When he saw the alien ship and its crew, he stopped walking. Thierry let out a frightened chirp. The navigator reached for his sidearm, but Vexnora raised one of her hands. "Wait," she said. The human did not run. He did not scream or attack. He just stood there, staring at them with his 2 small eyes. Then slowly, he raised one hand in what seemed like a greeting. He is trying to communicate, Vexnora said. He is not afraid. He should be afraid, Krilsa muttered. We are aliens. His people have never seen beings like us. But the human was already walking forward again. He moved carefully, keeping his hands visible. When he reached the edge of their camp, he stopped and set down his bag. Then he pointed at himself. Marcus, he said, Marcus Webb. Vexnora activated her translation device. It took a moment to process the sounds. He is giving us his name, Marcus Webb. She pointed at herself, Vexnora. The human repeated the name, his lips struggling with the unfamiliar sounds. Vex, Nora. Then he smiled, showing his flat white teeth. He seems friendly, Thierry said, though she still kept her distance. Marcus Webb looked past them at the crashed ship. His eyes moved over the damage, taking in the torn metal and sparking wires. Then he spoke again, a long string of words that the translation device struggled to understand. He is asking, what happened, Vexnora said. He wants to know if we are hurt. We are going to die, Krilsa said flatly. That is what happened. Marcus Webb seemed to understand that something was very wrong. He stepped closer to the ship, ignoring the nervous looks from the alien crew. He studied the damage with careful eyes. Then he reached out and touched one of the broken panels. He pulled his hand back quickly when it sparked. Power, he said, making a gesture that looked like electricity. No power. He is surprisingly calm for a primitive, the navigator observed. Vexnora nodded. She had studied the reports about humans. They were a young species, barely a few 100,000 years old. They had fought countless wars against each other. They had nearly destroyed their own planet several times. And yet somehow they kept surviving. They kept adapting. The galactic community had been watching them for centuries, waiting to see if they would make it to the stars or burn themselves out first. Yes, Vexnora said to the human. No power, ship is broken. Marcus Webb nodded slowly. He looked at the ship again, then at the aliens, then at his bag. He seemed to be thinking very hard about something. Finally, he picked up his bag and opened it. Inside were strange tools made from metal and wood. There were coils of wire and pieces of broken machines. I fix things, he said, pointing at himself. I am engineer fix things. Krilsa made a scoffing sound. An engineer on this planet. He probably thinks burning wood is advanced technology. But Vexnora was watching the human closely. There was something in his eyes, something she recognized. It was the look of someone who saw problems as challenges, not obstacles. It was the look of someone who refused to accept that anything was truly impossible. Show me, Marcus Webb said. Show me what is broken. Krilsa thought the human was insane. He stood in the damaged engine room of the Endless Dream Asterisk, watching Marcus Webb examine the cracked power core with a look of intense concentration. The human had been studying their technology for 3 hours now, asking questions through the translation device, touching things carefully, making notes on a piece of paper with a primitive marking stick. This is pointless, Krilsa said to Captain Vexnora. He cannot possibly understand our technology. His species has not even discovered faster-than-light travel. They still use chemical rockets to reach their own moon. He is trying, Vexnora said. That is more than we are doing. The truth was, they had no other options. The crew had gone through every possible solution. They could not repair the ship with the materials they had. They could not contact anyone for help. They could not even reach the nearest city on this planet, not without revealing themselves to the local population. The human, Marcus Webb, had found them by accident. He lived alone in a small structure several kilometers away, and he had seen the ship crash from the sky. Marcus Webb stood up from where he had been crouching. His face was dirty with grease and dust. He pointed at the cracked power core. This, he said, this is the problem, yes. The power core is cracked, Krilsa explained, speaking slowly. The translation device converted his words into the human language. It generates the energy that runs all ship systems. Without it, everything dies. How does it work? Krilsa struggled to find words simple enough for the primitive being to understand. It converts quantum energy into usable power. The process requires specific materials that can only be made in advanced factories. The core itself is made from crystallized dark matter. It cannot be repaired. It cannot be replaced. Not here. Marcus Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, "What do you need the power for?" "Life support," Vexnora answered. "Air, heat, water, recycling, communications. Without power we will die." "How much power?" The question surprised the aliens. Krilsa checked his calculations. For basic life support only, perhaps, 3 kilowatts continuous, but our systems are designed for quantum power. They will not work with anything else. Marcus Webb made a humming sound. He walked around the engine room looking at different machines and panels. He asked more questions. What did this device do? What about that one? How were they connected? The aliens answered as best they could, though they did not understand why he wanted to know. Finally, Marcus Webb sat down on a piece of debris. He took out his paper and his marking stick. He began to draw. "What is he doing?" Thierry asked. "I think he is making plans," Vexnora said. The human drew for almost an hour. He drew diagrams and charts. He made calculations, counting on his fingers and writing numbers. Several times he crumpled up his paper and started again. The aliens watched in confusion. When he was finished, Marcus Webb stood up and showed them his paper. The drawings looked like something a child might make. Simple shapes connected by lines, circles and squares and triangles. "Your power thing is broken," he said. "Cannot fix it, but maybe we do not need to fix it." "What do you mean?" Krilsa asked. Marcus Webb pointed at one of his drawings. "Your ship needs power. Your machines need power, but they do not care where the power comes from. Yes, power is power." "That is technically true," Krilsa admitted. "But our systems operate on quantum energy frequencies. The power must be converted and regulated in very specific ways." "Show me how." Over the next several hours, Marcus Webb learned about power conversion systems. He asked hundreds of questions. He made the aliens explain things again and again until he understood. The crew grew tired and frustrated, but the human never stopped. He had a hunger for knowledge that seemed endless. By morning, he had a plan. "Impossible," Krilsa said when Marcus Webb explained it. "Completely impossible." "Why?" the human asked. "Because you are talking about generating power using methods that are thousands of years old. Burning things. Using wind and water. These are primitive technologies. They cannot produce the clean, stable energy our systems require." Marcus Webb did not seem bothered by the insult. "Your systems need clean power. I understand, so we clean it." "How?" The human smiled. "On my world we had the same problem. Our early power was dirty. It was unstable, but we learned to fix that. We built things to make the power clean and stable. Transformers, regulators, capacitors. These things are simple to make." "Simple?" Krilsa could not believe what he was hearing. "Simple enough. We need metal, we need wire, we need some other things, but most of all we need fire. Fire can make anything." Captain Vexnora stepped forward. "You believe you can generate power for our ship using your primitive technology?" "I believe I can try," Marcus Webb said. "What choice do you have?" She looked at her crew. They were tired. They were scared. They had given up hope. But this human, this primitive being from a backwater planet, was offering them a chance. "What do you need?" she asked. Marcus Webb's smile grew wider. "Many things, and many hands to help. Your crew will need to work. Hard work. But first I need to go back to my home. I have tools there, materials, books." "Books?" "Information. Written information about how to build things." He paused. "My people have been building things for a very long time. We have learned much." He left as the sun rose over the hills. The aliens watched him go, walking across the scarred land toward his home. He moved quickly, with purpose. "Do you really think he can help us?" Thierry asked. Vexnora was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The reports about humans say they are remarkable problem solvers. They have survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and natural disasters. They have climbed their highest mountains and dived to their deepest oceans. They have been to their moon and sent machines to other planets in their system. All of this with technology we would consider ancient." "But this is different," Krilsa protested. "This is not just building a bridge or a building. This is quantum technology. This is survival," Vexnora cut him off. "And if there is one thing humans understand, it is survival." Marcus Webb returned before midday. He brought with him a cart pulled by a large four-legged animal. The cart was loaded with tools, materials, and thick books with yellow pages. "Now," he said, jumping down from the cart, "let us begin." He started by examining the ship's power systems again. This time, he did not just look. He took things apart. He traced wires and circuits. He measured distances and calculated numbers. The aliens helped where they could, but mostly they watched in amazement as the human worked. By evening, Marcus Webb had a complete picture of what needed to be done. He gathered the crew around and explained. "Your ship needs power, clean power, stable power. I cannot make quantum power. I do not even know what that is really, but I can make regular power, electricity, the same thing that powers my lights and my tools." "Our systems cannot use your primitive electricity," Krilsa said. "Not directly," Marcus Webb agreed. "But your ship has conversion units. I saw them. They take power from your quantum core and convert it into different forms for different systems." "Yes." Krilsa hesitated. "Yes, that is correct." "So we bypass the quantum core. We feed my electricity directly into the conversion units. They do not care where the power comes from. They just convert it. The conversion units require specific input frequencies and voltages," Krilsa said. "Your electricity would be too rough, too unstable. So we smooth it out. We build regulators, capacitors, transformers." Marcus Webb showed them his drawings again. "These are not hard to make. I have made them before, many times." "You have built these things." "I fix machines," Marcus Webb said. "That is my job. When machines break, I fix them. Sometimes I cannot get new parts, so I make new parts, from whatever I have." He pointed at one of his drawings. "This is a water wheel. Moving water turns the wheel. The wheel turns a generator. The generator makes electricity, clean electricity if we build it right." "A water wheel," Krilsa repeated. "You want to save our ship with a water wheel." "And windmills and maybe some other things." Marcus Webb looked at them with his strange two-eyed gaze. "Your ship is dying. My machines are primitive, but something is better than nothing. Yes." The aliens looked at each other. Finally, Vexnora spoke. "Tell us what to do." The work began the next morning. Marcus Webb divided the crew into teams and gave each team a job. The navigator, whose name was Prelvo, was sent with Thierry to find a stream with strong water flow. Krilsa was put in charge of salvaging materials from the damaged ship. Vexnora helped Marcus Webb plan the construction. "We need much wood," Marcus Webb explained as they walked through a nearby forest. He pointed at different trees, rejecting some and marking others. "Strong wood, wood that will not break when wet." "Why wood? Would metal not be stronger?" "Metal is stronger, but metal is hard to work, hard to shape. Wood is easier. We can build faster with wood." They spent 3 days gathering materials. Wood for the frame, stones for the base, clay from the riverbank, metal from the crashed ship, wire from Marcus Webb's supplies. The aliens were not used to physical labor, but they worked hard. They understood that their lives depended on it. On the 4th day, Marcus Webb began building the water wheel. The aliens watched in fascination as the human worked. He used simple tools, axes, saws, hammers, chisels. things made of metal and wood. He had no power tools, no advanced technology, just his hands and his knowledge. "Your species built great civilizations with these tools?" Vexnora asked. "These tools and others like them," Marcus Webb replied. He was carving a wooden gear, his hands moving with practiced skill. "We built pyramids, castles, cathedrals, ships that crossed oceans. We did all of this before we discovered electricity." "How long ago was that?" "Electricity," Marcus Webb thought for a moment. "About 200 years ago. Before that, we used fire and water and wind." Krilsa, who was helping to carry wooden beams, made a dismissive sound. 200 years. My species discovered electricity 10,000 years ago. "And yet here we are," Marcus Webb said. He did not sound angry or offended. He was just stating a fact. "Your ship is broken. Your advanced technology cannot save you, but maybe my primitive technology can." The water wheel took 5 days to build. It was a large wooden structure, nearly 4 meters in diameter, with dozens of paddles attached to its outer edge. Marcus Webb positioned it in the stream that Prelvo and Thierry had found, anchoring it to large stones on both banks. When the wheel began to turn, pushed by the flowing water, the aliens cheered. It was a small victory, but it gave them hope. "Now comes the hard part," Marcus Webb said. The generator was more difficult to build. It required precise work with metal and wire. Marcus Webb spent 2 days just winding copper wire around a metal core, creating what he called an armature. He built brushes from carbon and housings from salvaged ship metal. He used magnets pulled from damaged machinery. "The principle is simple," he explained to Krilsa, who was helping him work. "When a wire moves through a magnetic field, it creates electricity. The faster it moves, the more electricity. The more wire, the more electricity." "I understand the principle," Krilsa said. "My people discovered this long ago." "Then you understand what we are doing. The water wheel turns. The turning motion spins the armature. The spinning wire moves through the magnetic field. Electricity flows." When the generator was complete, Marcus Webb connected it to the water wheel. He ran wires from the generator to a small device he had built, a basic voltage regulator made from resistors and capacitors salvaged from his own equipment. "Turn on the wheel," he said. Prelvo released the brake that held the wheel still. The wheel began to turn. The generator began to spin. Marcus Webb checked his instruments. "We have power," he announced. "About 200 watts. It is not much, but it is a start." Over the next 2 weeks, they built more generators. Marcus Webb designed a windmill using cloth sails and wooden frames. He built a second water wheel downstream from the first. He even constructed a simple steam engine, burning wood to heat water and using the steam to drive a piston. Each new machine added to their power supply. 200 watts became 500. 500 became 1,000. By the end of the second week, they were generating nearly 2,000 watts of electricity. But Krilsa was worried. "We need 3,000 watts minimum," he said, "and the power must be stable. Your machines produce power that varies too much. One moment it is strong, the next it is weak." "We need batteries," Marcus Webb said. "Storage for the power. When we make more than we need, we store it. When we make less, we use the stored power." "You can build batteries." "I can try." Building batteries was the hardest challenge yet. Marcus Webb tried several designs. He built cells using acid and metal plates, following instructions from his books. Many of his attempts failed. The acids were too weak. The metals corroded too quickly. The aliens grew impatient. But Marcus Webb never gave up. He worked day and night, trying new combinations, learning from each failure. The aliens began to understand that this was how humans had always worked. They did not succeed through superior knowledge or advanced technology. They succeeded through stubbornness, through refusal to accept defeat. On the 18th day, Marcus Webb built a battery that worked. It was ugly, A collection of clay jars filled with acid, connected by wires and metal plates. But it stored electricity, and it released electricity when needed. "How did you figure it out?" Thierry asked, amazed. "My ancestors figured it out," Marcus Webb said. "A man named Volta. He lived 200 years ago. He built the first battery from copper and zinc and acid. I just followed his design." They built more batteries, dozens of them. They arranged them in rows near the ship, connected to the generators by long copper wires. Slowly, their power supply grew. On the 22nd day, they had enough power to try connecting to the ship. "This is the moment of truth," Krilsa said. He had spent several days modifying the ship's power conversion units, following Marcus Webb's specifications. "If this works, we might survive. If it fails—" "It will work," Marcus Webb said. He did not sound completely confident, but he did not sound afraid either. Vexnora gave the order, "Connect the power." Krilsa closed the switch that connected their primitive power supply to the ship systems. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, lights began to flicker on throughout the ship. Screens came to life. Systems beeped and hummed. "We have power," Krilsa said. His voice was filled with disbelief. "It is working. Life support is coming online." The aliens erupted in celebration. They had done it. Using nothing but wood and metal and human knowledge, they had brought their dying ship back to life. But Marcus Webb was not celebrating. He was looking at his instruments with concern. "What is wrong?" Vexnora asked. "The power is stable," Marcus Webb said, "but it is not enough. We are at 2,800 watts. You need 3,000, and that is just for life support. If you want to repair your communications, you will need more." "We need to send a distress signal," Vexnora said. "Without that, rescue ships will never find us." "How much power does communications need?" Krilsa checked his calculations. "At least 500 additional watts, and that is for a weak signal. For a strong signal, one that will reach the shipping lanes, we would need perhaps 2,000 more." Marcus Webb was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "I know a way to get more power, but it will not be easy." The aliens gathered around Marcus Webb as he explained his plan. "There is a thing my people discovered long ago," he said. "A way to make fire that burns very hot, hotter than wood fire, hotter than coal. We call it a forge. With a forge we can make better metal, stronger metal, and with stronger metal we can build better machines." "We already have metal from the ship," Krilsa pointed out. "Your ship metal is good, very good, but we need more than just good metal. We need precision. We need parts that fit together perfectly. To make those parts, we need to melt metal and pour it into molds. We need to shape it and hammer it and grind it." Marcus Webb unrolled another piece of paper. On it was drawn a complex machine that none of the aliens recognized. "This is a turbine," he said. "It uses steam to generate power, but not like my simple steam engine. This is much more efficient. It can generate thousands of watts from a small amount of fuel." "You know how to build this?" "I know the theory. I have seen designs, but I have never built one myself." Marcus Webb paused. "My people built turbines during what we call the Industrial Revolution. That was about 200 years ago. They changed everything. They gave us power to run factories, to pump water, to light cities." 200 years, Prelvo said. "In 200 years, your people went from building things like this to almost achieving space flight." "Almost?" Marcus Webb smiled slightly. "We have sent people to our moon. We have sent machines to every planet in our system. We are working on traveling to other stars." The aliens exchanged looks. They had read the reports about humans, but seeing this primitive determination up close was different. These beings had clawed their way from caves to the edge of space in what was, by galactic standards, the blink of an eye. "How long to build this turbine?" Vexnora asked. "If we work hard, maybe 10 days, maybe more. We will need to build the forge first, then make the parts, then assemble everything. We may not have 10 days, Krilsa said. The batteries are not perfect. They lose charge slowly. And your generators are made of wood and copper. They will not last forever. Then we work faster. They began the next morning. Marcus Webb directed the construction of a forge using stones from the hillside and clay from the riverbank. He built bellows from the hide of an animal that Prelvo hunted, stretching the skin over wooden frames and fitting them with valves. The forge was lit for the first time on the 25th day. The fire burned orange at first, then yellow, then a brilliant white as the bellows pumped air into the flames. Hot enough to melt iron, Marcus Webb said with satisfaction. Now we can make real tools. The aliens had never worked with raw metal before. Their technology had advanced far beyond such primitive methods. But they watched and learned as Marcus Webb showed them how to heat metal until it glowed, how to hammer it into shape, how to quench it in water to make it hard. Your ancestors did this, Vexnora said as she watched Marcus Webb work at the forge. The heat was intense and sweat poured down his face. They built their civilization with hammers and fire. Every civilization starts with hammers and fire, Marcus Webb replied. That is how you learn. That is how you grow. Your people must have done the same once. Perhaps it was so long ago that we have forgotten. Marcus Webb pulled a piece of glowing metal from the fire and began to shape it on his anvil. The hammer rang out in the quiet forest, a rhythm as old as human history. That is the difference between us, he said between hammer blows. We remember. We study our history. We read about the people who came before us, who discovered how to make fire and forge metal and build machines. We honor them by using their knowledge. And by improving on it. Always. Marcus Webb quenched the metal in a bucket of water. Steam hissed and rose into the air. Each generation builds on what came before. That is how we went from stone tools to space ships in just a few thousand years. The turbine took 12 days to build, 2 more than Marcus Webb had estimated. There were problems with the bearings, problems with the seals, problems with the pressure chambers. Each problem was solved through trial and error, through careful thought and patient work. On the 37th day since the crash, the turbine was complete. It was a crude thing by human standards, far cruder than the refined machines that powered the cities of Earth. But it was a turbine nonetheless, built from scrap metal and determination and the accumulated knowledge of human history. Ready? Marcus Webb asked. The aliens nodded. They had grown attached to this strange human over the past weeks. They had seen his frustrations and his triumphs. They had watched him fail and try again, never accepting defeat. He had become more than just their hope for survival. He had become their friend. Krilsa opened the valve that released steam into the turbine. The machine began to spin, slowly at first, then faster and faster. The generator attached to it hummed with power. 3,000 watts, Krilsa announced. 3,500, 4,000. The turbine ran smoothly, converting the heat of burning wood into clean electrical power. Combined with the water wheels and windmills, they now had more than enough energy to run the ship's basic systems. Communications next, Vexnora said. We need to send that distress signal. Repairing the communications array took another week. It was delicate work, requiring skills that Marcus Webb did not have. But he helped where he could, building brackets and supports and cooling systems. The aliens handled the complex electronics, grateful for the power that made their work possible. On the 45th day, the array was ready. This is Captain Vexnora of the Zarathi vessel Endless Dream *, she spoke into the transmitter. We have crashed on a Class 4 world and require immediate assistance. Repeat, we require immediate assistance. The message went out into the void, carried by electromagnetic waves across the vast distances of space. They did not know if anyone would hear it. They did not know how long they might have to wait, but they had power. They had air. They had hope. That night they celebrated with food and stories. The aliens shared tales of their home worlds, of distant stars and strange planets. Marcus Webb told them about Earth, about its mountains and oceans, its forests and deserts, its billions of people all living and working and dreaming. "Why did you help us?" Vexnora asked him. "You could have reported our crash to your authorities. You could have become famous. Instead, you kept our secret and worked to save our lives." Marcus Webb thought about the question for a long moment. "I fix things," he finally said. "That is what I do. When something is broken, I fix it. It does not matter if it is a machine or a ship or a person's hopes. If I can fix it, I will. Even when it seems impossible." "Especially when it seems impossible," he smiled. "My people have a saying, impossible just takes a little longer." The rescue ship arrived on the 61st day. It appeared in the sky without warning, a silver vessel many times larger than the Endless Dream asterisk. It descended through the clouds and landed in the scarred field next to the crashed ship. A hatch opened, and tall beings in clean uniforms emerged. "Captain Vexnora," the lead officer asked. "I am Commander Raistal of the rescue vessel Swift Justice asterisk. We received your distress signal 3 weeks ago and came as quickly as we could." "We are grateful, Commander," Vexnora said. "We had almost given up hope." Raistal looked around at the strange collection of machines that surrounded the crashed ship. His eyes took in the water wheels, the windmills, the crude steam turbine with smoke rising from its chimney. His expression was one of complete confusion. "Captain, what are all these things?" "These things saved our lives, Commander. When our power core failed, we had no way to generate energy. We would have died, but a local helped us. He built these machines using the technology of his world." "A local?" Raistal looked alarmed. "You made contact with the native population. Captain, you know that is against regulations. These people are not ready for—" "One local," Vexnora interrupted. "One human. He found us by accident and he chose to help us. Without him, we would all be dead." Raistal was still processing this information when Marcus Webb emerged from behind the turbine. The human was dirty and tired, his clothes stained with oil and soot. But he stood straight and tall as he approached the alien officer. "This is Marcus Webb," Vexnora said, "the human who saved us." Raistal stared at the human for a long moment. "You built all of this?" He gestured at the primitive machines. "With help from the crew," Marcus Webb said. "They worked hard, very hard." "But how, these machines? I have never seen anything like them. They look like something from ancient history." "They are from ancient history," Krilsa said. He had come to stand beside Marcus Webb. "Human ancient history, but they work. Somehow, incredibly, they work." Raistal shook his head in disbelief. He walked around the machines, examining them more closely. The water wheel turning steadily in the stream. The windmill, its cloth sails catching the breeze. The steam turbine huffing and puffing like a living creature. "The galactic community has been watching your species for a long time," Raistal said to Marcus Webb. "We have debated when you would be ready for contact. Some said you were too violent, too primitive. Others said you showed promise." He paused. "I think we may have underestimated you." "We are good at surviving," Marcus Webb said simply. The rescue crew spent 2 days examining the Endless Dream and the machines that had kept it alive. They took detailed recordings and measurements. They asked Marcus Webb hundreds of questions about how he had built everything, what principles he had used, what problems he had encountered. "This is remarkable," one of the engineers said. "You essentially rebuilt 10,000 years of technological development in less than 2 months, using nothing but natural materials and your own knowledge." "Not my knowledge alone," Marcus Webb said. "The knowledge of everyone who came before me. Every scientist, every inventor, every person who figured out how to make things work a little better. I just put it all together." On the third day, the rescue ship prepared to leave. The crew of the Endless Dream had transferred to the larger vessel. Their crashed ship would be recovered later by a specialized salvage team. Vexnora came to say goodbye to Marcus Webb. The human stood alone by his water wheel, watching the stream flow past. "Thank you," she said, "for everything." "You are welcome," he replied. "It was interesting. The galactic community will learn about what you did, about what humans can do. This may change things for your people." Marcus Webb nodded slowly. "Maybe, or maybe it will not. We have been out here alone for a long time. We have learned to take care of ourselves. You will not be alone much longer. What you have done here proves that your species is ready, ready for contact, ready to join the greater community of the galaxy." "Are we?" Marcus Webb looked up at the sky, where distant stars were beginning to appear as evening fell. "I am just one person. I fix things. That is all." "That is everything," Vexnora said. "You saw a problem that seemed impossible. You refused to give up. You used every tool and every piece of knowledge you had to find a solution. That is what makes a species great, not their technology, not their power, their determination, their refusal to accept defeat." She reached out and touched his arm with one of her 4 hands. "The galaxy needs more people like you, Marcus Webb, people who fix things." The rescue ship lifted off an hour later. Marcus Webb watched it rise into the darkening sky, climbing higher and higher until it was just a point of light among the stars. Then it was gone. He stood alone in the field, surrounded by his primitive machines. The water wheel turned. The windmill creaked. The turbine sat cooling, its fires banked for the night. Somewhere out there, among those distant stars, there were other civilizations. Other beings with their own problems, their own challenges, their own things that needed fixing. Maybe someday humans would join them. Maybe someday they would travel among the stars themselves. But that was for the future. For now, Marcus Webb was content. He had built something remarkable. He had saved lives. He had proven that even the most primitive technology in the right hands could work miracles. He picked up his tools and started walking home. There was always something that needed fixing. 6 months later, a message arrived on Earth. It came from the Galactic Council, a governing body that represented thousands of civilizations across the stars. The message was addressed to the people of Earth, and it said, "We have watched you for a long time. We have debated your readiness, but a recent incident has changed our perspective. One of your people, using nothing but ancient technology and human determination, saved the lives of 5 Zarathi citizens. This act demonstrates that your species possesses the qualities we value most: intelligence, adaptability, and an unshakable will to survive. We hereby extend to the people of Earth an invitation to join the galactic community. Your representatives may travel to the Council Station at the coordinates provided to begin the process of integration. Welcome to the stars." The news spread across the planet like wildfire. Politicians debated. Scientists celebrated. Ordinary people looked up at the sky and wondered what the future would hold. And in a small workshop far from the centers of power, Marcus Webb heard the news on his radio. He smiled, put down his tools, and went outside to look at the stars. "Well," he said to no one in particular, "I guess there is always more to fix." He went back inside and started making plans. There were machines to build, systems to design, problems to solve. Humanity was going to the stars, and they would need engineers. Good thing Marcus Webb knew how to make things work.